It is a dark future you live in. You hide behind refuse and wreckage, the sound of bullets and cannon fire thundering in the air around you. You spotted a blue barrel in the distance, holding water, and with it, the promise of life, of survival. That barrel is 10 meters ahead of you, across a torn warscape filled to the brim with cyborgs, drones, tanks, and exosuits. The stray gunfire is keeping you from moving towards your objective. Surely, this skirmish can't last for much longer, you think. And you're right, though your patience was tested, the skirmish ends with one side being victorious. After they confirm the kills, they leave, making their way to another battle in the distance. This is your chance. You jump from your hiding spot, scrambling your way towards the barrel, picking it up and fastening it to your rig. But just before you can make your getaway, you turn around to see a patrol of your Ruskan soldiers in front of you. This is how I die, you think. And yet, the patrol didn't even take note of you. Even when being as exposed as you are, the patrol continues onward, looking for their next objective. As you take a moment to breathe a sigh of relief, you realize you do not matter. This is The Foreverwinter, a third-person co-op extraction shooter developed by Fundog Studios, and sees you in the shoes of a scavenger caught in an eternal war between factions much more well-equipped and much more powerful than you could ever imagine. It has already been lauded on YouTube as being the anti-shooter, due to how it doesn't offer the player a power fantasy by portraying them as some sort of heroic and powerful soldier, but instead portrays them as a weak scavenger, barely struggling to survive this inhumane war. Why did the conflict start? Nobody remembers anymore, but they'll keep fighting nonetheless over the dwindling resources that this barren world can still offer. Your focus is survival, and the only way you can do that is to brave the perilous hell that is war, scavenging for whatever scraps and precious water you can find that will keep you going for just a little bit longer. This is the premise of The Foreverwinter, and that's pretty much all you're going to know going in, leaving you to piece the story together from NPC interactions and quest givers in the player hub. When you start the game, you'll begin with a tutorial that takes you through the basic controls. It will also show a quest objective in the top right informing you that you should kill 5 enemies in the tutorial. I was confused at first because the area I was in was completely devoid of any signs of life, but I went on with following the tutorial instructions. Eventually, I was asked to deliver a barrel of water to a certain destination. Once complete, enemies flooded the area and I quickly opened fire, killing some. I quickly realized that not only was my gun not doing much damage, but the number of enemies was quickly becoming overwhelming, and if I didn't do anything soon, I would get overrun. Luckily, I checked my objective, and seeing that I had already reached the required number of enemy kills, I figured it was time to run. I navigated to the extraction as fast as I could and got out of there. This tutorial made me understand a few things very quickly. I am weak, my weapons are almost useless, and the best path to survival is running away. Oh yeah, this is a great start. After the tutorial, I was loaded into the exact same area that I had just left, except this time it was populated. Apparently, the tutorial mission served as a way to clear the place of enemies and create a player hub once it was safe. Welcome to the Innards, where you will be able to access all of the amenities required for you to prepare for any future expeditions to the war-torn surface. Here, you'll find the quest terminal that'll give you quests from different factions, each with their own rewards, be it EXP, money, or certain weapons or items. At the start, however, you'll only have the scavengers available. The region terminal is where you select the area for your expedition and choose the insertion point you want to use. If you need to buy something with your hard-earned cash, you'll need to check out the various vendors within the Innards. You'll be able to purchase anything from weapons to pharmaceuticals to rigs and even NPC recruits. Do note that these vendors have limited stock and they will run out at some point and you'll have to wait for them to restock. In the character management section, you'll be able to select your character as well as level up their skills if you have enough XP. Each character has their own set of passives as well as skills to unlock. For example, the shaman can see loot from a greater distance than other characters and can carry more items. Leveling up isn't as straightforward as you'd expect though, since you have a certain XP cap that you can hit which stops you from earning more. This is where I'll use the in-game explanation of the system as it's much more concise and better explained than what I was going to write. When you reach the cap, you can no longer earn XP. The prestige system allows you to reset your character's progress once they reach their current maximum XP cap. Doing so removes all skills and increases the maximum amount of XP they can earn. Each prestige also grants increased health and occasionally boosts movement speed. So, the basic character progression loop is just reach your XP cap, prestige to increase the cap, rinse and repeat while unlocking skills along the way. As of now, there are 25 levels of prestige that you can hit, and by the end, you'll have enough XP to be able to unlock most of the skills available to you. Next up is the combat loadout section, where you'll select the gear you want to take with you in a run. Here, you'll choose your weapons, ammo, consumables, rigs, and other items that might be of use to you. Since I wanted to get a feel of how the game plays without me risking losing any gear, I decided to go full Solid Snake on my first outings and have all gear be acquired through on-site procurement. By the way, the surplus weapons the game gives you are bog standard weapons that you will never lose even if you die, so make sure to take them with you. Before we go into the actual gameplay, let me mention that there is a reputation system that you'll have to keep an eye out for. Good reputation will net you some really nice discounts from vendors of those factions, while a bad reputation does the exact opposite. Right. Heading into a level, you'll start at your incursion point, which is relatively safe. From there, you can proceed to the war zone. The place is already crawling with enemy factions eager to tear each other's throats out, and you will have to navigate the war zone as stealthily as possible while gathering resources to take back to the innards. In my playthroughs, I found out that there's always something to find. The question is just knowing where to find them. There are specific spots where loot spawns and they don't seem to move around, so once you map out a specific level well enough, you'll know exactly where to go and what route to take to make sure you can nab the resources you need. This loot can be anything from quest items, ammo, water barrels, explosives, you name it. The only thing you can't seem to loot are functioning weapons. Any weapons you find on the field will be broken, but they can be taken back to the innards to sell for a pretty penny. Problem is, you'll only find weapons on the corpses of dead soldiers. While the game actively discourages you from engaging in combat, especially if you're alone, there are still ways you can get your hands on this elusive loot, one of which is stalking an ongoing battle between the opposing factions, waiting for one side to be defeated and scuttling to pick up the remains once the dust has settled. Once your rig is full to bursting with loot, and if you don't have any other pressing quest objectives to complete in the area, you can make your way to the extraction point, which is normally on the other side of the battlefield from the incursion point. There are two types of extraction points. One is instant and it gets you out of the area the second you reach it, while the other one is a timed extraction point that will only get you out once 60 seconds have passed since its activation. The timed extraction points aren't as bad as I thought initially, as you don't have to be in the immediate vicinity of the extraction point to keep the countdown going. This might be patched out in the future, but until then, by all means hide as far away from the extraction point as you like, since activating it will cause enemies to spawn in and check the area. And that's basically the entire game loop. Go in, get loot and complete quest objectives, get out, level up your characters, and buy better gear. Just make sure that when you do go in with good gear, that you know exactly what you're doing, as one wrong move can spell the end of a run for you. I should also mention that water barrels are very important to you, not just from a lore perspective. Once you get back to the innards, you can deposit any water barrels at the water tank. Yes, the Scavenger is needed to survive, but it also unlocks new vendors, features, and decorations as you reach certain water level thresholds. The water levels are slowly being consumed, each water barrel equaling 24 hours of real time, so if you leave the game unattended for too long, you'll lose access to the vendors and features you've unlocked. Decorations stay though. I don't think this is too much of a problem because you can basically get one water barrel per mission that takes less than 10 minutes to complete if you know what you're doing. 24 hours of water for less than 10 minutes of game time, I think that's reasonable. One last thing I should mention is that the game offers quite a bit of customization. Throughout your runs, you will find weapon mods that you can attach, allowing you to have a bigger magazine, less recoil, etc. Obviously, these mods will be lost on death along with your weapons, so do be careful. I'm pretty sure that you'll find container compartments later down the line that you can attach to your rig to increase your inventory space and weight carrying capacity. I haven't been able to find these yet, but thankfully, I was able to just outright buy a larger rig from the vendor in the innards. There are currently 10 maps in the Foreverwinter, of which only 5 are available at the time of this writing. Each of these maps do a great job at depicting a different kind of hellscape that will instill a sense of dread as you navigate them. You have the Scorched Enclave, which is this arid field with giant monoliths in the distance and a few small bunkers dotted all over the place. The Elephant Mausoleum, formed of a series of claustrophobic trenches that make navigating every corner a danger of encountering new enemies. The mech trenches that serve as a factory for creating new mechs, and so on and so forth. Each map has its own feel, its own atmosphere, its own sense of self, and you feel that sense of self setting its watchful eye on you whenever you enter its domain. It almost feels like these regions are some sort of otherworldly Lovecraftian entities in and of themselves, and they do not take kindly to you rummaging around through their insides. Alright, time to get into some of the things I don't like. I do need to mention, this is an early access title, so there are bound to be bugs and unfinished content here and there. When it comes to how the game feels to play, it feels rather sluggish. I think I recall someone referring to it as controlling your character as if they were underwater. This seems to be a graphics card issue, as other people who played the game on a 4080 or a 4090 recorded very smooth footage. I'm running this on a 3080 Ti, and I feel the difference in how smooth everything is running. There are also issues with the AI. I think their tracking is way too on point at times, and they can home in on you more aggressively than your usual stealth-focused game. Along the same vein, there are these special enemy soldiers called hunter killers that always know where you are and are slowly making their way to you. I won't complain about their tracking, since I know they serve as a way of applying pressure to the player so as to encourage them to not play too passively. However, when they find you, their aim is insanely accurate. And yes, I understand, they're supposed to be a threat, but I think it's absolutely silly to wield something akin to a chain gun and be able to snipe you from 10 kilometers away. I legitimately had a situation in the Ashen Mesa region where I ran away from a hunter killer all the way to another sector of the map, and he was still able to fire at and hit me provided there were no obstacles between us. It can clearly be seen that the game is still in need of refining and fine-tuning, what with enemies sometimes spawning right in front of or behind you, issues of clunkiness when trying to vault over obstacles, getting stuck on terrain, the floatiness of jumping, and how the dive action is missing a proper animation. The Foreverwinter is an interesting take on the extraction shooter genre that tries to drive home that the player is nothing more than a rat skittering here and there, scavenging whatever they can. I can honestly say that I love the atmosphere the game provides with its environments and its industrial soundtrack. The game currently sits at a mostly positive rating on Steam with over 10,000 reviews, so it's clear to see that there is a lot of interest in it. But in its current early access state, I cannot recommend it completely, as there is still so much work that needs to go into it. I would recommend you follow the game or add it to your wishlist and come back to check on it later. But if, like me, you consider this game to have potential, and you really, and I mean really, want to support the devs, then by all means give it a shot. But that's going to be it from me. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like and a sub, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, have a good one.